Every country in the world has gone through various of evolutions, from government transformation to the modernization of every culture. China, being one of the homes of the major civilization, were once ruled by various dynasties that has formulated much of the culture today in Chinese society. Hi, good day. Today, we would be talking about the life, the philosophy, and the ideas that influenced the father of modern Chinese in his declaration of the Republic of China, Mr. Sun Yat-sen. The last of the great dynasties, the Qing dynasty, were in this period of time, the 20th century, the empire was busy fighting with the foreign invaders as the Western influence started to dominate the world. They are also in a long-term conflict with the Japanese Empire as they have also made their step towards strengthening and expanding their territory. After 6 months of war between them, the Japanese won and has ended the First Sino-Japanese War, and the Korean Peninsula was transferred to the Japanese Empire as part of its colony. It was said that the Chinese Empire was defeated because of the loss of support from their people, as the empire was continually abusing its people. The aristocrats and the public servants were corrupt and incompetent. Due to this realization, it became the call for a change in the country's system, and this is where Sun Yat-sen has finally made its appearance. Now, who is Sun Yat-sen? He is called as the forerunner of democratic revolution in China. He was born on 1866 at Macau. He studied medicine in a Christian school where he learned about Western theories and was baptized as a Christian. Upon studying overseas and experiencing how different life is in Qing and also in Hong Kong, he blames Qing for being foolish by not modernizing. He made ties with people who have same dream in overthrowing the empire and replace it with a better form of government. Sun was successful in gaining more followers because of the decline of the Qing dynasty and the newspaper organization that has attacked the Chinese empire. So, Sun Yat-sen created a nationalist party which is called Kuomintang that was founded by Sun Yat-sen in Tokyo, as he created a revolutionary group along with Chinese who opposes the Qing's empire. In 1911, small revolutions broke out from provinces and were successful in suppressing their provincial governments. Sun went to Shanghai and was elected as a provincial president for the group, and later joined hands with the imperial minister Yuan Shikai, who has the same goal as Sun Yat-sen. Now on February 12, 1912, the last emperor Puyi abdicated the throne and Yuan became the successor. Now, Yuan Shikai was not a competitive politician. He wanted himself to become an emperor. He preferred an authoritarian rule and created his own constitution, banishing Kuomintang and Sun Yat-sen himself. Now Sun came back and organized a revolution against Yuan Shikai and succeeded due to both internal and external pressure. Now on 1916, following his death, the country, has divided into great divisions that made China suffer again. Sun reformed the Kuomintang as a national people's party, became the president of the South, and wanted to unify the country under the Republic of China. The loss of aid coming from the West and Japan has led for Sun to seek help with the Soviet government in Russia, as he needed support financially, military, and politically. In 1924, Sun traveled to China in the promotion of unifying China and ending the factions and divisions throughout the country. Now, unfortunately, on March 12, 1925, Sun died of a liver cancer, and Chiang Kai-shek became his successor, and in turn successfully unified China by conquering northern warlords and has built the Republic of China. Sun has envisioned a country under which it will carry his political philosophy, a blend of Eastern and Western experiences named the Three Principles of the People. Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is Danica, and today I will be discussing about Sun Yat-sen's philosophy, the three principles of the people. The three principles of the people is a political philosophy that was developed by Sun Yat-sen with a goal to make China an independent and powerful nation. This philosophy has been identified as the foundation of the policies that was pursued by the Nationalist Party or the Kuomintang. It was also the basis of some political ideologies of Mao Zedong, and thus the fundamental philosophy for the People's Republic of China today, although it is more apparent in Taiwan. The three principles stresses the importance of three things that is mostly beneficial to the people of China. The first principle is Minzu, which refers to nationalism. Sun was expected to overthrow the Qing dynasty. He blamed China's plight on the imperial lords of Manchu's king. For China to become great, there has to be unity among the different ethnicities to seek independence from imperialist domination. Sun believed that China needed to develop a civic nationalism rather than an ethnic nationalism to unite the people of different tribes and cultures. Unfortunately, the Chinese people were not loyal to the nation as a whole. Instead, their loyalty was more focused on their clans or families. Compared to other countries, China has one of the largest populations and oldest cultures and traditions. But it was one of the poorest and weakest countries due to the disunity of its people. In an article of Weaver, Sun's idea of nationalism was uniting people in order to overthrow and resist foreign domination. He also saw nationalism as a sense of national pride and awareness of national identity. He argued that nationalism has been existing before the 19th century and that China just have to revive this national spirit which Sun believed that the Chinese once held, but abandoned due to premature cosmopolitanism. The second principle is Min Quan, or democracy. This principle aims for the process of establishing national unity by the revolutionary awakening of the people. Dr. Sun Yat-sen's idea for democracy is a balance of power between the people and the government. That the great political force of the state should be divided into two, the power of the government and the power of the people. He explained that sovereignty was the power to execute and regulate public behavior, and if people and sovereignty were linked together, it would result to the power of the people. Just like any other definitions of democracy, it was expected that the government was of the people, by the people, and to the people. He believed that strength and power of the government had to come from the citizens. Although China is considered a communist country, the Chinese Communist Party emphasizes that it is the people of Chinese society who give power to China. Sun might meant democratically elected politicians, but eventually the Communist Party took over and modified the sense of this principle. Sun stated that China must follow the path to democracy before, but derive from the Western patterns. In his sixth lecture on democracy, he developed his metaphor of government being a machine. He described Western democracies just like the early engines, because they can advance but not drawn back. In other words, citizens could not control the man they elected to office, whether they turned out to be worthy or incompetent. As part of the measures to demonstrate the democratic control of the people over the government, Dr. Sun emphasized four political rights of the people, namely election, initiative, and referendum and recall. He explained that if the people are granted with these powers, then the fear of the government becoming uncontrollable would diminish. Also, Sun emphasized that for a government to be an effective administrative machine, five power system must be evident and must consist of the powers of the executive, legislature, judiciary, censorship, and civil service examinations. The third and the last principle is called Minsheng, which refers to welfare or livelihood. This principle is aimed at the economic equality and focuses on Dr. Sun's theory of evolution. In his lectures, he stated, our Minsheng principle aims at the destruction of the capitalist system. This refers to his conviction that the desired Chinese government should provide food, clothes, shelter, and transportation towards its citizens. These are major concerns currently mirrored by the Chinese government. Dr. Sun has also criticized the Marxian theory of surplus value as a shallow understanding of capital accumulation, and is very opposed to the idea of Karl Marx's class struggle as a path to social progress. He believed in a symbiotic relationship between the capitalists and the working class, that if the capitalist cares for the workers, then the other's productivity would surely increase. Society should progress through a harmonizing rather than the clashing of the interests of the workers and capitalists. Inequality was largely attributed to a rise in property prices due to economic growth. The solution to this was not a class struggle, but a single land tax, income, which, together with the subsequent increases, could be used for the benefit of the society.
Greetings once again. I am Alan, and I'm going to continue our discussion regarding Sun Yat-sen's nationalist declaration of China. Now, as it has been discussed, one of the major contributions of Sun Yat-sen was his three principles of the people, championing the principles of nationalism, democracy, and socialism. However, scholars argue that these philosophies postulated by Sun can be traced to several influences. Furthermore, they argue that this is true in a way that Sun himself was not a professional philosopher, but rather a mere country boy of Chuheng, now the Zhongshan city, for example. Therefore, in this discussion, I argue that Sun Yat-sen's philosophies are influenced by other ideals and principles, in the sense Confucianism and Western principles. So before anything else, what quite a recap on what is the nature of Confucianism, right? So, as we all know, Confucianism in its essence is a way of life from teachings of Confucius, a Chinese philosopher from 6th century. It aimed to be the forerunner that establishes Chinese social values, institutions, and ideals to Chinese society, hence dwelling more on the idea of what ought to be moral. Well, successfully, Confucian thought was able to attract followers and proliferated in Chinese society. Well, this is evident on the countless Chinese book authors that have published books influenced by Confucian thought. In line with this, is one of my substantiations on the idea that Sun Yat-sen's philosophy is influenced by Confucianism. So, what would be the basis of my arguments in this discussion, right? First, we are going to tackle about Sun's reading habits as a child. Second is the engagement that he had during his time. So, and at the end of this discussion, I'll be presenting to you instances where where we could say that Sun Yat-sen is influenced by the Confucian thought. So, firstly, Sun's reading habits. During his childhood, Sun was found out to be a reader. With this, he was also found out that he had copies of traditional primers and classical books. These books was identified to be the Great Learning, the Doctrine of the Mean, the Confucian Analects, and the work of Mencius, while traditional primers involved the Book of Poetry, the Book of Records, the Book of Rites, the Book of Changes, and the Spring and Autumn Annals. This is according to Gregor 2015. These works have been considered to be the prime texts of Confucian tradition, although yes, they were not the direct work of Confucius himself, but the authors of these the authors of these books or these works were highly associated as his followers, particularly his students, namely Zhengzi, Zizi, and Mencius and whatnot. Therefore, it has been found out that Sun Yat-sen was a reader of Confucian-influenced works. Thus, it is safe to assume, for example, that since he read these books, his perspective was influenced by these works. But yes, again, I recognize that to base someone's perspective on the books that one read is somehow ambiguous and vague in naturally. That's why I'm going to tell you that there were instances and where Sun Yat-sen was actually able to utter words directly or indirectly claimed or uttered Confucian thought. So this is evident on Sun's first public statement. So during Sun's political public statement in 1984, Sun spoke about the substantive defense of the livelihood of the people. In this essence, he alluded the Confucian virtue of the vast majority of mankind. In this case, this can be linked to the ideas of Mencius. As we can recall, Mencius is the student of Confucius. So Mencius had admonished an intelligent ruler to concern himself with the regulation of the livelihood of the people. So as to make sure of that above, they shall have sufficient wherewith to serve their parents and below, and sufficient wherewith to support their wives and the children. So according to Mencius, one of the students of Confucius, that there should be an intelligent ruler that actually concerns himself to the livelihood of the people in order for the people to actually take care of the functions that they ought to perform, i.e. the role of the son to the father, the wife to the husband, and whatnot, as postulated by Confucian thought. And so therefore, we can analyze that the claim of Confucius to actually the moment that he alluded to the vast majority of Chinese individuals to pursue their livelihood, we can therefore assume that Confucius was trying to pinpoint this idea, trying to pursue this idea that he wants to have that figure where he is an intelligent ruler that is concerned with the livelihood of the people, for the people, in order for the people to perform their functions based on Confucian thought. And so therefore, in this light, we can directly see how Sun appealed to the people by postulating to this audience that there is a need to protect and advance livelihood of the people, which can be linked to how Mencius defined as an intelligent ruler that is concerned with the livelihood of the people. So in that sense, Sun Yat-sen has uttered Confucian thought, although not indirectly, but as it was analyzed by Mencius again. As it can be analyzed, it directly links to the idea of Mencius. Now, second is Sun's appeal to nationalism. So it has been discussed by Danica an earlier ago that nationalism has been one of the concepts of the three principles of the people by Sun Yat-sen. So according to Gregor 2015, when Sun Yat-sen appealed to the Chinese community to regain their national spirit, he advocated not only to regain this sense of patriotism, but as well as the ideals of Confucianism, to regain the Confucian ideal China once have. He talked about Confucian tradition, particularly the great learnings as the source of morality that is deemed necessary to Chinese nationalism. And so therefore, this pertains to the idea that, hey, Sun Yat-sen directly uttered this, Sun Yat-sen telling us that, telling the Chinese people that when I say that I want you to regain Chinese nationalism, what I mean is the Confucian ideas where we base our moral acts based on Confucian thought. And so therefore, when Sun appealed to nationalism to Chinese community, this pertains to his appeal to also regain Confucian thought. So, in addition to this, there's also an occurrence to Confucian thought when Sun Yat-sen, Sun Yat-sen's before Sun Yat-sen's death. So, according to scholarly accounts, when a Russian visitor asked Sun before he died in 1925 due to cancer regarding the inspiration behind his revolutionary doctrine, Sun answered without hesitation that his doctrine is a development and a continuation of the ancient Chinese doctrines of Confucius. So in this sense, when we look at these statements, the development and continuation of ancient Chinese doctrines of Confucius, we can tell that indeed it's somehow the link of Confucian thought. It's a link to Confucian thought as well as the continuation of it. The development in a sense that he perhaps merged these ideas to his other principles, and the continuation because he wants to regain these ideas again, what the Chinese had before. So with that being said, it is indeed evident that the three principles, the political philosophy of Sun Yat-sen is indeed influenced by Confucian thought. But secondly, on Western concepts, right? So, it is evident on how Sun's three principles of the people is heavily Western on nature. Such, for instance, on how Sun emphasized self-determination, where opposing to the Qing dynasty in foreign imperialism. So, self-determination refers to opposing the Qing dynasty in foreign imperialism, where in this sense, Sun appeals for a course of action not only to a specific group, but the whole Chinese community. Or when he called for the equalization of ownership in terms of land property through justifiable system of taxation. In these prescriptions, it can be heavily observed that it is democratic and socialist at the same time. Hence, it can be argued that Sun's principles are mixed of Western principles. So I argue that there are traces where we can find why these principles are present on the ideas of Sun Yat-sen, right? Because the influence of Western principles can be traced back to the times where Sun Yat-sen was not only put into exile, but as well as where he studied. So as Akram stated earlier ago, Sun Yat-sen was able to study in a Christian school and graduated there where he learned Western concepts, right? So in addition to that, during the exile of Sun Yat-sen in Japan, Canada, Europe, and United States, the likelihood of him being able to grasp the idea of how ought to work and how ought to work in government system and a democratic system, for example, or the rules of the government towards pursuing the best, the general livelihood of the people, for example, was able to influence Sun Yat-sen. Thus, the likelihood of Sun being influenced by what he read and saw is more likely. Thus, reflected his principles. So, with that being said, I stand firm that yes, Confucianism and Western principles have influenced the three principles of the people of Sun Yat-sen. Thus, with that, thank you for listening, and I hope you've understand something in this discussion. Thank you.